Minister for Family and Community Services, the Honourable Prue Goward, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to CSI's inaugural Social Finance Forum. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we gather today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. As Keith said, my name is Andrew Young and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Centre for Social Impact. Our hope and intention is that this forum is the first of many exploring the rapidly evolving field of social finance. Most of you have come today to learn about the specific topic of social impact bonds. In fact, also as Keith has said, there are probably twice as many of you here today as Informa expected, and a few more than we expected as well. If we had another 10 or 20, I think we might have had to change hotels. I want to start though with the question of why. Why are there 150 of you here to explore this topic with us today? Stephen Covey famously said in his 7 Habits that we should begin with the end in mind, and I'm keen to explore that in the next few minutes this morning. Why are we, representatives of all sectors in Australia, with a common interest in social outcomes, interested in the topic of social impact bonds? If your answer to that question is more money for your organisation, or more generally, more money for social purpose, then I'd suggest you're not alone. I've heard a lot of people speak about that as a key outcome from the field of social impact bonds or social finance. But I want to question how much more money we would have to generate through mechanisms like this for this to really be interesting to us. In Australia each year, across government and non-profit and some for-profit agencies, we spend at least $250 billion on social purpose. How much more money would we have to generate through social finance to make a significant difference if the only improvement is quantity? Perhaps 10%, $25 billion a year? If that's our aim, then I think we've got a lot of work to do. I am optimistic that the broader field of social finance can make a significant difference to the quantity of money available for social purpose. But I think if we only focus on that, we miss the majority of what is really interesting about social impact bonds. I began as Chief Executive Officer of the Centre for Social Impact earlier this year, receiving the baton from our first distinguished speaker this morning, Peter Shergold, but more about Peter in a moment. Our mission is improving the delivery of beneficial social impact through research, teaching, measurement and the promotion of public debate. Given that our role is improving social impact, I've spent much of my first 6 months in the organisation asking the question, what are the keys to improving social impact? If you could influence 2 or 3 things that would most greatly improve social impact in Australia, what would they be? I've now posed this question in surveys with CSI's many advisory councils, our staff, and interviews and meetings with our partners across Australia and with 22 organisations in California, in Boston and in London. Of all of those, now over 150, do you know how many people have said the answer is social impact bonds? None. So why are we here? Maybe I should also have met with our guests this morning, David Hutchinson and Jane Newman from Social Finance UK. Maybe they would have said social impact bonds. We'll give them their chance in a moment. Instead, I heard 6 answers to the question, what are the keys to improving social impact? They are collaboration, across sectors and across organisations, fostering and then scaling effective social innovation, great people in management, leadership and governance of social purpose, better defining social purpose organisations and activities in terms of social outcomes to begin with, effectively measuring and transparently reporting our performance in delivering social outcomes, and funding models which reward the effective delivery of social outcomes. Aha! So we can jump on this last one and say, that's it, that's what social impact bonds are about. It might be more money, but it's also a funding model that is explicitly linked to social outcomes. And if that's your argument, I will agree with that too. But actually I want to argue that social impact bonds almost uniquely can touch all 6 of those elements of the keys to improving social impact. As well as outcomes-based funding, social impact bonds involve all sectors. They are innovative models in themselves and they have the potential to help us foster and scale other forms of social innovation. They rely on effective definition of social outcomes and on the measurement and reporting of those outcomes. These things are all explicit parts of the story. The model I haven't yet mentioned is great people in management and leadership of social purpose. And perhaps the jury's out, maybe you can comment on that at the end of the day. But I think if you explore at all deeply, you'll find that there is a whole generation of people, many in their 30s, with all sorts of backgrounds, who are increasingly interested in the field of social purpose. And they are far more attracted to new models like social finance, social impact bonds, than traditional forms of social delivery. I think there is a big opportunity for us to tap into a greater range of people with that interest in social purpose. So if we ask the right questions, social impact bonds and social finance more generally can help us develop and learn and explore all of the keys to improving social impact. But we need to set the right expectations. We need to be patient. We need to be prepared to invest in time, in capacity, in people and in systems if we're to reap those benefits. I think this is pretty hard work that we're undertaking, and I'm pretty sure that David and Jane and the participants in the New South Wales Bonds pilots would agree. It takes time. This is no silver bullet, but it could be something much more significant. In introducing today's forum, it's worth recognising that social impact bonds are still very new. I think it's been just over 2 years now that the Peterborough pilot was formally announced, and perhaps another 18 months or so that work was under development. The first announcements in Australia are less than 2 years old, and the work in America has really only taken off this year. The successful bidders for the first social impact bonds in Australia were announced in March 2012, and today is the first time we've seen all of the organisations involved in the New South Wales social impact bond pilots in one room. They're still busy developing their contractual arrangements with governments and with each other, and this afternoon we'll hear all about the New South Wales trial and bonds from all sorts of perspectives, all three bonds, and from legal, financial, non-profit and government perspectives. We'll explore the opportunities and the challenges in the road ahead. Later this morning we'll hear from our international guests about the development of the social impact bond concept in the UK and current progress in that field. But to set the scene today, we'll start with an exploration of the Australian policy context for social finance. And to kick us off this morning, it's now my very great pleasure to introduce Professor Peter Shergold. Peter has many hats. He's billed in the program simply as the chair of the New South Wales Social Investment Expert Advisory Group. He's also the Chancellor of the University of Western Sydney. He serves on the boards of both AMP and Cause Chambers Westgarth. He's actively involved in the non-profit sector, serving on at least 3 non-profit boards. He also chairs several state and federal government advisory groups. Peter's had a distinguished career in the Australian Public Service and has headed Commonwealth agencies responsible for multicultural affairs, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander affairs, employment and workplace relations, and education, science and training. He was the Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet for 5 years from 2003, and also became the founding CEO of the Centre for Social Impact in 2008. To describe how to create a win-win for government, social enterprise and the investor, please welcome Professor Peter Shergold. Thank you.